Hi, if you're watching this video, then you are obviously in one of my English literature courses. And I wanted to give you some insights on how best to plan out your term so that you can find success in a reading-heavy course. We're going to start, as always, with a PowerPoint. So with any college class, you want to plan for success, and there are usually some techniques in order to do so. For the reading heavy class, these are the techniques you're going to want to use, and I'm going to tell you why for each one. You're going to want to use a planner. This will help you to kind of map out how to balance your reading schedule with any online work you have to do. You want to read ahead when possible. There's going to be times when you have a lot to read and times when you have not quite so much to read. So if you're reading ahead a little bit, then on those times when it's a lot to read, you're better off than when those times when it's not so much to read. When it's not so much to read, it's usually the poetry weeks, and those poetry weeks are very light because poems are short, and so that's where you can kind of plow through some of the heavier stuff like the novels. You want to take notes as you read. There are resources for you in the bonus resources section that you're welcome to print off and use, you're welcome to download and use, just different ways and styles that you can be taking notes as you're reading that will help you with any papers that are due and any discussion boards. It's just a time saver for you so that you don't have to be digging through, because let's face it, when you have a novel to read, and you are looking through and you read something and it's really good and you read it in chapter 10, but chapter 10's like 20 pages long, that means you have to dig through 20 pages to find your exact quote that you're trying to make your point with. So taking notes is really a huge time saver. And with those notes, again, include page numbers, because why dig through 20 pages if you don't have to? If you've already got the page number, then when I'm asking you for those in-text citations, you already have what you need. So very, very smart time savers are the notes. If you don't like marking up your book or you don't want to take time with the notes, you can always get these little sticky tabs right here. I don't know if you can see those. I love sticky tabbing my books for key places. And that's another tool that you can use. If you don't have the little sticky tabs, maybe you've got index or cards, you can slip an index card in there. Maybe you've got the full-size sticky notes, you could put a sticky note on there and maybe even jot down a quick what you were thinking, and it can just kind of hang out the top so that when you're glancing through all of those, you can have those as well to reference. So lots of different options for you for taking notes as you read. And what I'd like you to do is, there's no one right way, because everybody's brain works differently. So definitely select the way that's going to work best for you. So however that is. And the reason I tell you this, and the reason I'm really an advocate for this, is really something we're going to get to here as we get to the final paper. And it's a really good story, but yeah, you don't want to be that student. So next, moving on with that, is select your paper topic early. So look at the options for the final paper, look at what it is you're being asked to do, and then kind of start generating those ideas now, so that you're not stuck at the end of the term trying to figure out what you want to write about, trying to go back to gather all those notes, and ending up with maybe a little bit more of a nightmare than you had planned on. You don't want to be stuck all weekend doing one paper. It's not fun. For the paper, when you are asked to do a paper, you want to read what you're asked to do the paper on ahead of time. And then you'll want to reread it. Why? Because you will catch things that second time through. So the first time through is just kind of to get a glance over and to see what it is that you're being asked to do this paper on and to enjoy. If it's a first time reading, you should be enjoying it. The second time that you read it is to dig in and to look for those concepts you're going to be analyzing. So that's the difference between the first read through and the second read through. And then you want to gather your sources all term. Don't save it for the very end. All right, my nightmare that happened before I had all of these tools in place, I was going through for my master's degree. I'd been an English major before, so I knew everything that was supposed to happen, and oh, I've got all this down pat, right? Except when it came time for the final paper, I saved it for the very end. I had read the book once, and I had not gathered my sources all term. So there I was, sitting there with about 20 articles printed out from the online library, spread across my queen-size bed, and my primary source, which was my novel, it was Frankenstein, and no sticky tabs in the book anywhere, no marks in the book anywhere, no notes anywhere, and I had to write a 14-page paper on this novel. And so it took me, luckily, being an English major, it only took me 2 days to dig through everything, but it took a solid 2 days. I am talking from when I got up in the morning until about midnight for 2 days solid, digging through to compile this paper because I did not take the time to plan ahead. Please do not be that student. Now, there are going to be check-in points as we go along this term to help you out, and I wanted to do something else that would help you save some time as well. If you're in one of my literature courses, we likely have some kind of a textbook for literary theory that is available for you, and it's probably a pretty thick book. And textbooks, if you're new to college, you may not know this, but they're not meant to be read straight through. That's just not how it works. So if you're into the literary theory book, I've probably assigned you the introduction, and there's an about this book, an approaching theory, and those will help you to understand how to use this book. Because if you're assigned a chapter of reading on, let's say, structuralism, I'm not expecting you to read it straight through. I just want you to have an understanding. So some key points would be the introduction to the chapter, the stop and think, and likely what the structuralist has to do for their literary theory, and probably some of the key examples of criticism. So those are really the highlights, just to give you an understanding. Again, not really meant to be read straight through if you're not an English major. I'm just trying to give you an idea of what these theories are. Now, that being said, if you're doing a literary analysis paper and you've selected one theory, you're going to need to read that one chapter forwards and backwards and really understand it in order to apply it in your paper. So that's the only chapter you should really be heavily digging into, unless there's some others that interest you, which is perfectly fine. I mean, don't get me wrong, I would love to see some of my students turn into English majors as well. I know not all of you will, but maybe a few of you will have your interest piqued enough that you'll enjoy digging into some other theories. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please do not hesitate to reach out. I really am here to help. Again, for the reading heavy class, plan ahead, take notes, and don't read a textbook straight through. Look for the highlighted areas that you know you're going to need if you're just in an introductory course, because this is more for an English major, so you don't need all of it. You just need the highlights. I just need you to have a general understanding. Make sense? Again, don't get me wrong, if you're interested enough, go for it. All right. Any other questions, please let me know. Definitely use the LMS email system so that I get just your emails in that one spot and so that your emails don't end up in my spam folder. Some students, when they use their personal emails, it'll end up in my spam folder. So be safe, use the LMS emailing system so that you know I get your email. All right, guys, thanks so much and catch you on the flip side.